Labor MPs are beginning to hit the hustings and try and sell the government's tax changes. One of those is the member for Moreton in Brisbane, Graham Perrott, who spent the last couple of days door-knocking in his electorate, speaking with locals, trying to gauge their reaction. Sky News went along as he spoke with some of them to assess the response.
So just here to talk to you about the new tax packet that we've put together.
Okay.
Middle income Australians, they'll receive the biggest benefit.
Wonderful.
That's all right?
Grateful.
Okay, all right. So just calling to talk about the proposed tax changes.
No, we will read it. Of course, we will. Anything is good for the Australia.
Yeah.
It's
All
good
right.
for Australia, for us, for everybody.
The basic proposition is more people will benefit.
Need more money.
All right.
They've got enough there.
Okay, I won't tell them that.
The grassroots campaign has begun. Graham Perrott told Sky News he avoided promoting the old model of stage 3 tax cuts, arguing this one is easier for him to sell to voters.
The Morrison stage 3 plan gave me $9,000 whilst I had to tell a cleaner that they got nothing. So that's not something I was particularly proud of, even though it had gone through Parliament 5 years before with Labor support. But this is something I'm much more keen to get my name attached to say, look, this is repurposing it. People will, all of those, 11, 12 million Australians will still get a benefit from in their pay packet from the 1st of July. So it's something I'm much more comfortable talking to people on the doors about.
Joining me now is Eamon Fitzpatrick, a former Labor advisor, now principal of Fitzpatrick Advisory. You've got that viewpoint as Graham has put to his constituents, and he argues it's easier for him to sell this revised plan. The other problem is, and as you know, you've watched politics for a long time, is the broken promise, and a lot of voters won't appreciate that breach of the government's commitment. So that's the dynamic, isn't it, that we'll see battle out, not just next week in the Parliament return, but over coming months.
There's no doubt about that, Kieran. It's a lot of it will come down to, trust in the Prime Minister, in the leader. But let me say this, the reception he's had, the reception this policy has had, has actually been resoundingly, I think, popular. And that is not in some way to sort of talk down the importance of trust and character. In fact, it was the Prime Minister who made it about trust and about character, because he's the one who's talking about the need to do something for Middle Australia. And I think in the weeks since he's announced that, where there was some nervousness in the Labor Party room, that's really started to settle down, and we're seeing people like Graham Morton, who's a really hard-working member in such a crucial seat in Brisbane. He is not alone in getting that sort of reaction. And I'd also point out too, I think what makes this one unique, this so-called broken promise, is that this, unlike all the others, more people will benefit from it, from this change, this policy change, than will be harmed by it. And in the end, as long as they stick to that, as long as they stick to that message that it's about not just doing the right thing, but making sure more people get a fairer break, then so be it. And I think by and large, everything I've seen, and I know a lot of people who watch politics and who follow it closely, I think that's been the sort of shared experience. The challenge, I think, is actually Peter Dutton, who he was missing in action on the day it happened, really, when the Prime Minister briefed the caucus room. There was a bit of a misstep by his deputy, Susan Lee, who said they would undo it. And now there's a bit of a not sure which way they're going to go. But they're in a pretty tricky position, and it's well, so
we could get. I do want to ask you about. I'll ask you about that for next week. I'll ask you that later, because we obviously have to preview the Parliament next week. But for the Prime Minister personally, does he lose a bit of bark while this more broadly for the government might land okay? For him personally, after saying he's going to change politics, he's going to be a man of integrity, his word is his bond, and then does not commit to this stage 3 untouched.
Well, and again, I think that's why this is incredibly unique, just because of what it does for so many more people. And the integrity issue, we saw him seek to define that last week. And in the days since, he's sought to define the issue around integrity is whether he should just stand by and let people keep on hurting the way they are, or actually do something and intervene. And that's how he will be judged, I think. In the end, it's almost like some people, you go into elections, and I'm not saying it's not important, it is absolutely important. But I think there is a degree of cynicism these days around politics everywhere. So,
Sure.
Again, integrity is the issue, and he sought to sort of take that ground, if you like, and define what the integrity issue is.
Only got 30 seconds left, but so the coalition, you touched on that. Where do they go next week? Do they just say, okay, well, we're not going to try and block that, but we will add more if elected?
Well, I think they're going to have to quickly work out their position. I think they have been all at sea since, and then we see the inflation numbers come out today as well. Talk about adding a whole other dynamic now into it. So they've got to be mindful about that too. Is the job done? Is the job not done? I mean, those are all the questions. In some ways, not being clear about the position on day one is actually going to drag out for them, I think, and potentially be quite tricky for, Peter Dutton, who is renowned for being, a very, very, on-target opposition leader. He's relentless. But I think ambiguity is not his friend.
Eamon Fitzpatrick, Principal of Fitzpatrick Advisory. Thanks. Talk to you next week.